All right, this next poem I'm going to share, I wrote for a friend of mine a few years ago. Before I share it, I just want to quickly say that it's really unfortunate that we can live in a world where we can communicate globally almost instantaneously, and yet so often we choose to share really negative things. So I think encouragement is really, really important. And although I wrote this for a specific friend who I was really blessed to learn a lot from and just walk through life with, witness his surrender to God, his transformation by God. If as you're listening to it, there's some men in your life that you think this applies to, why don't you encourage them? Why don't you send it to them? It's called Psalms 1. A metaphor is life, rediscovered in simple phrases. Spoken images smudged just beneath the surface of poets' precious pages. A metaphor in action looks something like, sounds something like, is something like this. In every forest there are but two trees, two men, and every man that you know is one or the other. The first is a tree unplanted, a man without roots, a dead-end log, and when the winds of life rage against him, he falls. He is a man unwatered. His hands are gnarled branches without fruit, because no heart can produce without drinking in truth. And though this man stands thirsty, stands dry, stands dead, throat parched, he'd rather set his feet on the comforting shifting sands of his own ideas than risk giving up his grip on the ground, than risk losing control to the Lord of earth, of rain, of trees, of men, a God as unpredictable as wind. So he lets the seeds of his thoughts walk in the desert of foolish counsel, just to let himself feel wise, to let himself feel alive. He straightens his spine, holds his head high, and decides he's not a tree after all, not a tree to need water or sun, not a tree to have roots. He was not meant to bear fruit, and any suggestion otherwise is somewhere between slightly amusing and simply ridiculous. This man loves to sit high, to be king, to be God, to be judge, but little does he know that he is but perched upon a throne of his own making. This man, unplanted, unwatered, unsurrendered, and unfathered, stands but to fall. He lives to die. Thank God you are not that kind of man. A metaphor is life rediscovered in simple phrases, spoken images smudged just beneath the surface of poets' precious pages. A metaphor in action looks something like, sounds something like, is something like this. In every forest there are but two trees, in every place there are but two men, and every man that you know is one or the other. There is a man with an oak tree for his heart, and a sycamore for his soul. An entire forest resides between his ribcage and his spine. He watches where he walks, where he stands, where he lets his thoughts be planted, because he knows that sometimes his thoughts take him places he shouldn't go. And he's determined within himself that the Lord of earth, of rain, of trees, of men, can look down from heaven, can rain down freely, knowing the droplets of his truth will be received by this man's roots. Day by day and choice by choice, he will bear eternal fruit. This man, planted in God's walks, watered by God's thoughts, surrendered to God's will, and fathered by God himself, falls to his knees in order to stand against life's winds, dies to himself in order to live. So he is blessed to be well thought of by the Father, well spoken of by the Lord, provided for by the King of Kings, and nourished by his word. Praise God, friend, that you are that kind of man. God bless.